Hey everybody, welcome back to another edition of Horror by the Book with Noel Wing. That's me. Today we're going to talk about movies you have to stream for 2024 spooky season. I've seen some really cool films this year and I'm going to discuss them. So stay tuned. Cue it. Cue it. We don't have all day. Hurry up and cue it. I'll be right back. Hey everybody, welcome back to Horror by the Book with Noel Wing. You say, where have you been? It's been a while. It has been a while. I've been doing a couple things. Growing a beard. First one in my life. We'll see how it goes. And then I'm buying bookshelves like the one behind me. So I won't be doing a green screen probably again unless it's a special occasion. But anyway, I've been busy doing other things too, like writing books. I have published Baby. And if you like Longlegs, the movie, this is the book for you. Halfway through, I talked to my daughter and said, they copied my book. They really didn't. The story diverged. But this is a dark little story about a detective in rural Montana. So that was released, and a few weeks later I released The Smoke Out. Story about a spa that uses smoke for its guests during their meditation. And they come out a little bit different. Another novella. Not that long, 4-hour read, maybe. And then Ashes to Ashes, I just released recently too, which is a story about a young man named Justin Rampart who has to take care of his estranged aunt's will. And she leaves some really peculiar stuff in there that he has to deal with. So those are all on Amazon. But that's not the topic of today's conversation. The topic of today's conversation are movies you should be streaming for 2024. Fairly recent films. So let's talk about a couple that I wouldn't stream. I hate to be negative first. Gosh, being negative can be really bad, and I hate to start out, but I just want to get those out there because they're on my head right now. The Watchers. You know, that movie had some pretty major gap holes in it, and some of those were the size of the Grand Canyon, honestly. And I just found the movie very, very strange. I'm not sure it was even horror, to be perfectly honest. But I guess that's the best place it falls. It's M. Night Shyamalan's daughter's directorial debut. It just could have been better. I was ready to go home 2/3 of the way through it. And then got kind of crazy at the end. And I don't know, it just could have been better. Another one which I might catch flack for, and I already have from some of my friends that I see on a regular basis here, is Alien Romulus. Enjoy Alien, the classic. Its sequel, Aliens, was really a good first week sequel. This one fits in that time frame somewhere. I'm not sure if it was after Alien or right after Aliens. I think it was between the two. It doesn't really matter because it was the same stuff. I thought it was quite dull, actually. You've seen this before. A lot of prequels, sequels, they lose their originality. I'm talking about that later too. But this one here, if you understand Alien, the series, don't bother. But let's be much more positive now and talk about some movies I like, specifically 3 in a row that I saw at the theater. And in my whole adult life of watching horror films, which is a few decades, but who's counting? Anyway, I went to the movie 3 consecutive times and saw some of my favorite films. And it's probably the best set of 3 movies I've ever went to in a row in my life, in my whole adult life. The first one I saw was Longlegs. Of course, it had been well marketed. I'd seen the trailer probably 20 times. I knew what kind of the basics of what the movie might be about, but I thought the movie was very well done. And besides copying my book, which came out a week earlier, which it didn't. I'm just kidding around. There were some similarities, that's all. But anyway, I told my daughter, who was with me at the time, that, this is the way modern horror should look. This is the way modern horror movies should be shot, should be produced, and should be made. I thought the film was eerie, creepy. I don't think it was as predictable as some critics have said. I wasn't sure what was happening at the end. I really didn't. Anytime you have weird dolls, that's not a great thing. But Longlegs was great. Nicolas Cage was great in it. You actually had to look to make sure that was Nicolas Cage in it. That makeup was pretty darn good. It wasn't so easy to tell, but Longlegs definitely fantastic. The next movie totally caught me off guard. I didn't know anything about it. I went to a movie because I had some time to go and some movie theater points to earn and keep. And I went ahead and went to the film, and I'll tell you what, that was one of the best movies I've seen in actually several years. The name of the film was Oddity. It's a set in Ireland. I think it's an Irish film somehow, but I think it's a Shudder film. Because it's on Shudder right now. That's where I know where we can find Oddity. It's on Shudder, and it's well worth making sure you get a chance to see that. But I thought Oddity was fantastic. And you know, it goes to show you can have a huge budget like some of these films, but if your director isn't creative, clever, and consistent to their own style, I'll talk about that a little bit later too, then you can throw all the money you want to at it. It may not be a great film. But Oddity literally had one jump scare in it that literally gave me a physiological reaction. You know, I jumped before, you know, just get startled. This jump scare literally like took my breath away for a second. I had to like breathe, like it had a physiological reaction in my chest. I've never had that in a film in my life. The cool thing about Oddity is his jump scares weren't just a honking horn, you know, or a door slamming or a bird hitting a window. It was actually, I mean, the jump scares were actually had something to do with the plot. Extraordinary well done. It just. And I don't want to give away a spoiler, but the scene I'm talking about, there were several good ones, but the one I'm talking about is the one that she was, the lady that was living at that home was walking up in the balcony and looked over the edge at this wooden mannequin. That's all I'm going to say. And it just caught me off guard, totally did. And this must have been a week after I watched Oddity. I went with a friend to pick up a table or something she'd ordered from somebody here in the area where I live. And on the front porch of that residence was a full-size wooden mannequin. I elected, for self-preservation purposes, to stay in my car. That's the kind of film Oddity was. Fantastic. It'll really stick to your ribs and you won't forget you saw it. The third film in a row that I thought was wonderful was Cukoo. Once again, I think it's the way modern horror is going to look. It was edgy. It kind of makes you kind of paranoid, that film, actually. But I was very impressed with the show. I enjoyed it. The time went fast. The hour and a half or 2 hours, however long it was in the theater, it went super fast. And if those of you don't know, you know, some people complain, well, why is it called cuckoo? Well, if you know about cuckoo birds, and I'm not an animal professional by any stretch, but you know, I think they lay their eggs into another bird's nest, and another bird kind of, you know, makes their eggs hatch eventually and stuff. And I think eventually pushes other smaller birds out. Cuckoo's actually a pretty good sized bird. Anyway, once you know a little about the cuckoo bird, the name of the film makes sense. But I thought it was fantastic and well done, and I enjoyed every minute of it. Talk about some others I liked too, not to the extent of the way I liked those three, but I liked The First Omen. You know, when you sit and look back in history, of course, The Omen is considered an iconic film in horror, and you know, I'm not a big fan of prequels and sequels. However, I was a fan of this one. I thought it did a good job. It was really interesting to hear see the backstory. And I was just really impressed with The First Omen. I thought it was good and well worth streaming, especially if you like religious type of horror. Well done. Another one that I thought was really cool and was Abigail. Now, I've seen lots of vampire movies, right? There's only a few that I can say, oh yeah, that was fantastic. You know, I think Let Me In or Let the Right One In, whichever film you pick, was really good. They made you almost root for the vampires. Fantastic. And I also like 30 Days a Night, one of the most underrated horror films in history, in my opinion. Another vampire film that put a sort of a new take on them. They were almost like zombies in that film. But anyway, it was really cool. So was Abigail. I had not seen a film like that. And once again, you start having mixed emotions with a vampire. At least I did. You know, she's a horrible, evil thing, but yet she's still in the body of a girl, and a young girl, and you end up kind of rooting for her despite her evilness and darkness. But I liked Abigail. I was entertained the whole time. Talk about a few more here. Late Night with the Devil is a Shudder film a lot of people liked. I didn't like it as much as most. I love the cool vibe. It felt like I was watching a 70s, daytime show or nighttime show. But I thought it was pretty good all in all. I'd give that like a 6 out of 10, 7 out of 10. It was entertaining. So that's also on Shudder. You can stream that pretty easy through Shudder or its family of associate channels. Another movie I liked was Maxine. Maxine was totally cool, I thought. It's part of the Pearl franchise. Mia Goth is a fantastic actress, in my opinion. One of my favorite actresses. It goes all the way back to seeing her in Pearl and the monologue at the end. That girl can get it done behind a camera. I thought she was fantastic. And anyway, I liked Maxine. If you like the 80s pop culture, oh yeah, film for you. Along with another film that's kind of a horror comedy. It's called Lisa Frankenstein. Tons of cool 80s stuff in there. And some of my favorite alternative rock bands are in that soundtrack. It's like they consulted me before they made the soundtrack. Lisa Frankenstein's cool and a fun watch for somebody that doesn't want a horror film that's that intense, but wants more of a comedy. I thought it was kind of cool. I gave Lisa Frankenstein a thumbs up for sure. One movie that I thought was kind of silly. If you have Shudder, don't bother streaming this one. In my opinion, pick others first. And that was In a Violent Nature. To me, that was just copying tropes from Jason, where they're in the woods, or Michael Myers, the one, and doesn't say much, never runs, just walks, and then you add some of the violence of Terrifier in it. Some real crude, awful, violent scenes. I just felt it lacked originality. And I tell you what, this movie did have for sure, was some of the dumbest horror characters in horror movie history. I mean, they deserve to be killed as characters. They did some of the dumbest things. They practically invited the Grim Reaper upon themselves. I mean, honest to Pete. So I was thinking, I get it, one of the tropes of the horror genre is, how dumb the people are that get themselves in a pickle. Well, this whole group of people did not strike me as rocket scientists. And they earned their terrible fates, put it that way. So anyway, I thought the film kind of was uncreative and copied a lot of stuff and a lot of concepts. So I'm not a big fan of that. As an author, you want to come up with something creative and different. I don't feel the director did in this one. I do feel that they did on those other three movies, especially Oddity. I like to write a lot of supernatural stories. And that's my favorite genre. I tried to write slashers before, and they always end up kind of supernatural too. I don't know what it is. I end up back there. But anyway, Oddity's the kind of story I would love to write, and wish I would have thought of it. It was brilliant. By the way, that director of Oddity also has another film on Shudder called Caveat. You can tell it's the same director. Just the pace of the film and the way it's shot. And it's kind of disturbing, kind of like worth watching. But it's not Oddity. And Oddity was one of my favorites of all time. This video is being shot before I've seen Substance. Terrifier 3, I believe it is now, is coming out soon. By the way, when I went to Terrifier 2, I was sitting next to a couple people, and when the movie ended, one turned to the other and said, "That puts Saw to shame." Terrifier's got its form of violence for sure. That's pretty graphic. And but I do like the series, especially when you have a new horror villain with the death of Michael Myers. I think finally, unfortunately in my opinion, but finally, maybe there's room for Art the Clown to, catch the pop culture like Michael Myers did. But I think it's going to be really hard because he's still an icon. You still see his mask, the Halloween music. Awful hard to beat that. But anyway, those are some of the films I saw this year I liked. There's also another film out, a religious film, I believe it was called Immaculate, something like that. I enjoyed that one too. So if you like religious horror, that may be up your alley. Anyway, that's just a suggestion, some suggestions of what you may want to watch this year. That's some of my favorite films I saw this year. And I go to almost every one. I see just about everyone that comes out, but I do miss a few once in a while that I may not that interested in, like A Violent Nature I saw on TV. But I try to catch them all. So I hope this is valuable to you as you plan out some of your spooky story watching. Coming up soon, I'm going to do a look at Dean Koontz and his writing career and where he fits in the annals of great writers. I know he's borderline horror, borderline thriller, but he definitely falls in some of the horror category of some of the stories, in my opinion. And I'm trying to get a special guest on to talk about a demonic possession, so we'll see how that goes. That deal's not final, but anyway, so stay tuned. There could be some fun stuff coming. This is Noel Wing with Horror by the Book. I'm out.